The snowstorm came out of nowhere. One minute, Daniel was driving his old pickup truck along a lonely mountain road with his 8-year-old son Ethan asleep in the back seat and his lifelong best friend Lily laughing beside him. The next minute, visibility vanished into a wall of white. The truck skidded across black ice, spun twice, and slammed into a snowbank. The engine died. Their phones showed no signal. Miles from the nearest town, with temperatures dropping below freezing, Daniel realized that surviving the night had just become far more important than reaching home. But what he didn't know was that before sunrise, one whispered sentence from Lily would change both of their lives forever. Daniel had been raising Ethan alone ever since his wife, Sarah, passed away from cancer 4 years earlier. Losing Sarah had broken him in ways he never admitted to anyone. He smiled for his son, worked long shifts as a carpenter, packed school lunches, attended soccer games, and read bedtime stories every night. Yet every evening after Ethan fell asleep, Daniel sat quietly on the porch staring into the darkness, wondering if happiness had left his life forever. He convinced himself that his only responsibility was being a good father. Love, companionship, and dreams of another future no longer belonged to him. The only person who truly understood his silent pain was Lily. They had been friends since elementary school. She had stood beside him at his wedding, comforted him at Sarah's funeral, and helped Ethan through countless difficult days. Lily never tried to replace Sarah. She simply became the dependable friend who always appeared when life became overwhelming. Ethan adored her. He called her Aunt Lily, even though they weren't related. Daniel often wondered how she had remained single for so many years, but he never asked. Some questions felt too personal, and their friendship was too valuable to risk. That winter weekend, Lily had convinced Daniel to take a short trip into the mountains before Christmas. She insisted Ethan deserved one happy adventure after such a difficult year at school. Daniel reluctantly agreed. The plan was simple: spend one afternoon at a small mountain village, enjoy the snowy scenery, and return home before dark. None of them imagined the weather forecast would be so terribly wrong. After the truck became trapped, Daniel grabbed emergency supplies while Lily wrapped Ethan in every blanket they had. The boy was still sleepy and frightened but trying to be brave. Daniel spotted an old wooden cabin about 200 yards away through the falling snow. It looked abandoned, but it was their only hope. Carrying Ethan on his shoulders while Lily struggled through knee-deep snow behind them, Daniel fought against freezing winds until they finally reached the weathered cabin. The door resisted at first before creaking open. Inside, dust covered everything, but the roof remained intact. There was an old stone fireplace, a wooden table, and 2 small beds. It wasn't comfortable, but it could save their lives. Daniel quickly gathered dry wood stacked beneath the porch while Lily searched the cupboards. Surprisingly, someone had left candles, matches, and a rusty kettle years earlier. Soon, a small fire crackled inside the fireplace, casting warm orange light across the room. For a few hours, everything seemed manageable. Ethan drank warm water and eventually fell asleep beneath several blankets. Daniel remained awake, feeding wood into the fire while snow pounded the windows. Lily quietly watched him from across the room. She had never seen him look so exhausted. His shoulders carried years of grief, responsibility, and loneliness. Even now, stranded in a dangerous storm, his first thought had been protecting everyone else. The temperature continued falling despite the fire. The cabin wasn't insulated, and icy wind slipped through cracks in the wooden walls. Daniel noticed Lily shivering uncontrollably. Her lips had turned pale, and her hands trembled violently. He offered her another blanket, but it barely helped. Hours passed. The fire grew weaker as their pile of firewood shrank. Daniel worried they wouldn't have enough to last until morning. Outside, the storm only became worse. Rescue teams would never find them before daylight, assuming anyone even realized they were missing. Lily suddenly whispered with barely enough strength to speak. "Hold me. I'm freezing. Daniel froze. He understood exactly what she meant. Human body heat could prevent dangerous hypothermia. It wasn't about romance. It was survival. Still, something inside him hesitated. Ever since Sarah died, he had built invisible walls around his heart. Crossing even the smallest emotional boundary terrified him. Lily looked into his eyes. I'm scared, Daniel. Without another word, he wrapped both blankets around them and gently held her close near the fireplace. She rested her head against his shoulder while their combined body heat slowly warmed them both. Neither of them spoke for several minutes. The only sounds were the wind outside and the crackling fire between them. For the first time in years, Daniel realized how lonely he had become. He wasn't betraying Sarah by surviving. He wasn't dishonoring her memory by allowing someone to care about him. Sarah had always wanted him to be happy. That thought hit him harder than the freezing wind outside. Lily quietly admitted something she had hidden for years. I never stopped loving you. Daniel closed his eyes. He had suspected it once, long ago, but she had never acted on those feelings because he was happily married. Even after Sarah's death, Lily kept her distance, believing Daniel needed friendship rather than romance. She sacrificed her own heart because she respected his grief. I wasn't waiting for you to love me back, she whispered. I just wanted you and Ethan to never feel alone. Tears filled Daniel's eyes. No one had ever loved him so selflessly. Before he could answer, Ethan suddenly woke up. Dad? Daniel immediately smiled. We're okay, buddy. Ethan looked at Lily resting beside his father and smiled sleepily. I knew Aunt Lily would keep us safe. The innocence of the child's words filled the tiny cabin with warmth stronger than the fading fire. Morning finally arrived, but the storm had not completely passed. Their food supplies were almost gone. Worse still, Daniel discovered Lily had developed early signs of frostbite in 2 fingers despite everything they had done. She insisted she could keep walking if necessary, but Daniel refused to let her risk permanent injury. Using broken furniture, rope from his emergency kit, and pieces of the cabin door, Daniel built a simple sled. He placed Ethan and Lily on it, then began pulling them through the snow toward the main road. Every step felt impossible. His muscles screamed with exhaustion. Several times he collapsed into the snow before forcing himself back up. Hours later, just when hope seemed to disappear, Ethan pointed weakly toward the distance. Dad! I hear something. At first Daniel heard only wind. Then came the faint sound of an engine. A rescue snowmobile appeared through the white landscape. A local ranger had noticed Daniel's abandoned truck after the storm cleared enough for patrols to begin. Search teams had been looking for them since sunrise. When the rescuers reached the cabin's trail, relief washed over everyone. Ethan burst into tears. Lily nearly fainted from exhaustion. Daniel simply looked toward the sky and whispered a quiet thank you. The following weeks were filled with recovery. Lily's fingers healed without permanent damage. Ethan returned to school excitedly telling everyone about surviving a real snowstorm. Daniel resumed work, but something inside him had changed forever. He stopped pretending that strength meant carrying every burden alone. He accepted help. He laughed more often. He smiled without forcing it. One spring afternoon, several months later, Ethan came running into the backyard where Daniel and Lily were planting flowers. Dad! What is it? When are you finally going to ask Aunt Lily to marry you? Daniel nearly dropped the shovel. Lily burst into laughter while blushing. Even Ethan realized what both adults had been too afraid to admit. Daniel looked into Lily's eyes. I've spent years thinking my story ended the day I lost Sarah, he said softly. But maybe she was never the end of my story. Maybe she was the chapter that taught me how precious love really is. He reached into his pocket. There wasn't a fancy diamond ring, only a simple silver band he had bought after weeks of quiet reflection. Lily, you've loved my son like family, stood beside me when I had nothing left, and reminded me that healing doesn't erase the past, it honors it. Will you marry me? Through happy tears, Lily nodded before he even finished speaking. Yes. Ethan cheered louder than anyone. A year later, they returned to the same mountain. The abandoned cabin still stood beneath tall pine trees. This time, they carried fresh supplies, blankets, food, and emergency equipment. They repaired the old fireplace and left a survival box for anyone who might one day become stranded there. Before leaving, Daniel carved a small message into a wooden plaque and hung it inside the cabin. The cold may test your body, but hope will always warm your heart. Never face life's storms alone. As they walked back toward their truck, Ethan held both Daniel's and Lily's hands. The mountain that had nearly taken everything from them had instead given them a second chance. Sometimes life traps us in unexpected storms. Sometimes the fire grows weak, the road disappears, and fear whispers that we will never make it home. But the strongest warmth doesn't always come from the fire beside us. It comes from the people who refuse to let us face the darkness alone. Healing begins the moment we allow someone to stand beside us, carry our burdens, and remind us that even after unimaginable loss, love can quietly find its way back into our hearts. The greatest courage is not surviving the storm alone, it is trusting someone enough to hold you until the sunrise finally comes.